Hey guys, Howard here with MakerDaddy.com, and today we're looking at lesson number 7 for the Arduino. And in this lesson, we're going to continue upon our build that we started before, and we are going to learn today about debouncing the button and about making the button work as a toggle switch. So when you go to turn on the light switch on the wall, you turn it on, the light stays on, turn it off, the light stays off, right? And that's a toggle switch basically. So what we want to do is turn our push button into a toggle switch. So we're going to look at the code here in a minute, but the result is basically I can push the button, the lights will continue to blink until I push the button again. Remember before I had to hold the button down for the lights to stay on, but when I released it, they would turn off. Okay, so we're going to look at that. And also, I found from the last build that sometimes when I press the button and let it go, the lights either stay on if they were blinking, or if they were off, they might flash but then turn back off. And it turned out that there's something called chatter when you have a button like this. When you press that button, it's not really just one contact, right? So what can happen is that button can actually make and break contact very quickly, and you don't know that because you can't really see that, you can't feel that when you're pressing it. So what we had to do is we had to look at debouncing it. So in the code, we create a small interval that says, hey, did I push this button? Is it really pushed? Is it on or is it off? And it waits a very fraction of a second, like 50 milliseconds, to determine that that really is a real button press. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at that in the code.
All right, so let's take a look at the code here for lesson 7. In this code, we're going to actually be doing a couple of things. We're going to turn our push button switch into a toggle switch, and we're going to we're going to debounce the switch. So earlier, I found that sometimes I could press the switch, and even though I push push the button down and release it, the lights did not act the way that I thought they would. If the lights were on, I could actually see them uh, stay on after I pressed the button. And if they were off and I wanted to turn them on, or when I released it, sometimes they would stay off. So that's not what I wanted. And I come to find out that there is such a thing as chatter. That's what I've heard it called. So when you press the button, it can actually make and break contact very, very quickly before as you're reading that signal. So it may give you a false signal when you think when you think you should have a high signal, you end up with a low, and vice versa. So we need to debounce that and get rid of that issue. And we also, as I said, want to use it as a toggle switch. So I can press a button and then the lights come on and start blinking. And then later I can press the button again and they stop. All right, so let's take a look at the code here. So we're going to have old button state, current state, last flickerable state. These all deal with the state of the button and are used for the debounce. And same here, we have, in addition to our left and right milliseconds for the lights, we have the interval there. We also have something now called a last debounce time and a debounce delay. So our delay is 50 milliseconds. We're going to, if we have press the button or release the button, then there's at least 50 milliseconds that it's been in that position, and we know that that is now the current position. All right. So in setup, we're setting our pin modes and our button mode, or the pin mode for the button, just as we did before. Now, in the loop, we're calling current state equals digital read for the button. We've done this before. Now, this piece of code is where we set up the debounce. So we're saying if our current state, which we're reading right now, is not the same as our last flickerable state, then we're going to call this code. We'll set our last debounce time to be the current time in milliseconds on the board. And then we're going to say last flickerable state equals current state. So basically, if our state changes, we're going to set a time. Then we're going to reset this state to be whatever that current state was. So if the button is being pressed, this might flicker back and forth. But when we leave this block, we have a new last debounce time, and we've set this last flickerable state. So when we enter this if statement, We check again. We take the current time in milliseconds, subtract the last debounce time, and if that is greater than 50, which is our debounce delay, if it's greater than 50 milliseconds, I mean, we have been holding it or it has been released long enough for that to be the true state. So then we'll go ahead and enter this code. And in this code, all we're doing is checking our old button state and our current button state. So if it had been low and now it's high, we're going to check our value for running. If it's true, we'll set it to false. If it's false, we'll set it to true. Again, running is going to be the flag that lets us know if our light should be turning on or off. Then we set our old button state to equal to the current state. So when we enter this code, again, we check to see, have we pressed this button? If we have, and our current state is high, then that means we're going to either turn the lights on by setting running to true, or we're going to turn them off by setting running to false. Sorry. So again, at the bottom of this piece of code, we're just checking to see if we're running. We call run process. If not, we call stop process. And run process is the same as it was in our last lesson, where we reset our current milliseconds. Then we check our left LEDs to see if they should be running, if they should be turned on. And if not, we turn them off. And if we check our right LEDs to see if they should be on, if they are, we set our signal. If not, then we turn it off. And then, of course, stop process resets everything, turns all the LEDs off, and resets everything back to where it was before. Okay, so that part of the code is the same as it was in the last lesson. Our main changes here are the fact that we're using the old button state and the current state now to determine if we should be changing the running value. This is our toggle switch. Then we're doing the debounce to make sure that we actually have a good press and release. All right, that's it. I will go ahead and wrap this up, and please like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.